Alright, if you're a real manly man, then you don't need to use gloves to pack your bearings. You can just do it on your bare hands, but I gotta be touching my camera and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I've got the bearing dropped into, this is the inner bearing, so this is the back of the rotor. So I've got that dropped into place, and now we're ready to come in here and install our seal. Okay, so the bearing's in place, and I went in and I put a whole bunch of grease down inside the hub. And then what I did is I just took a rag, cleaned off some of the grease that was right here on the edge. And so now we're ready to come in here and tap in our seal. And these are real simple. They just sit right there like that. And then you just come in and you kind of lightly tap it in place. Okay, so we got our new seal set in place. What you want to do is come in here, just get a little bit of grease on your finger and wipe it on the inside of this seal. It kind of pre-lubricates the seal a little bit. You don't want to have a dry spin on these wheel seals, and they're designed to keep the grease in. This seals against, there's a large area on the spindle that this rubber pushes up against, so you want to kind of pre-lube that up just so you don't burn out this seal right away. And that's it, we're done on the back side. Now we just got to come and do the front, but I'm going to wait and get this mounted on the truck, and then I'll pack my outer bearing, and then we'll be ready to put it all back together. Okay, so now we're ready to come in here, and we got to clean off our spindles, get all this old grease and gunk and spider webs and whatever else is crawling around in here. Get all that off. So you just get your brake cleaner and your paper towels and just hose it down, wipe it off, and just try and get this as clean as you possibly can. Okay, so I got the spindle all cleaned up, and I just want to make a couple points here. Definitely get back onto this area right here, the innermost part of the spindle. This is where that seal rides against as the rotor is turning. It spins on this little machined area right here. And just so you know, this area, the shiny area right here, is where the inner bearing rides. And this area right here, it's actually a little bit discolored on mine, is where the outer bearing rides. So, and we got this all cleaned up. We'll get the rotor out here, and we'll pack up the outer bearing and get this all put back together. Also, don't forget to come in here and clean up your castle nut and your washer. Just put them on a rag, give them a squirt with some brake cleaner, and then just wipe them off. So don't forget to clean up these parts as well. Alright, I want to make one more quick point before I put the rotor back on the spindle. You can see this little groove here cut into the spindle. Your washer has a matching little key. This is often called like a keyway or something like that. But your washer has a matching little nub on it that lines up with that groove. I've seen people in the past who've like hammered these things on crooked or something like that, or they just couldn't figure out how this washer went back on, so they just went and got another just flat washer without the little groove and just stuck that on there. But this little tab here lines up with that groove, so just don't forget that. So I got the rotor out here by the truck, and I've already packed up the outer bearing and went in and laid some more wheel bearing grease into the hub. So now we're ready to put it on the spindle. Alright, so let's put this rotor back on the spindle here. Come in here like this. Watch your outer bearing. That has a tendency to kind of pop off a little bit. You want to make sure you get this thing seated all the way on to where that seal is rubbing on that larger machined area that I pointed out earlier. So we got our bearing on there. Coming here with our washer, remember the little tab lines up with the groove. And then you come in here with your nut. And there it is, the hubs on the back on the spindle. Okay, so now we're ready to tighten back down our spindle nut. And like I mentioned, this isn't supposed to have a whole lot of torque on it. I think the recommended torque setting is actually 15 inch-pounds. But what I like to do is I like to come in here and tighten it down, kind of snug it down, and spin it at the same time. Snug it down tight, and that kind of sets the bearings in place. And then once it's tight, just spin it spin it while you're doing this, and then you can back off about a quarter of a turn till you get your castle nut lined up with the cotter pin hole. Don't forget to pick up some new cotter pins as well. The size you need is 1/8 inch by 1.5 inches long. Alright, so here you can see I got my cotter pin in place. There's the head of the cotter pin. I like to bring mine up and just hammer it flat against the outer edge of the spindle. That for me works best, and I know it's not going to come out. So all we got to do is next step is to put our new dust cap on. I do like these personally with the little flange on the edge. It makes it really easy to get them on, and you don't damage the end of the dust cap. So just come in here, clean off a little bit of if there's any grease or anything on the edge of the rotor here, and then you just kind of stick that in place. Just give it a few quick taps. You can tap it on the end to get it set in place, and then you just tap on the edges to get it seated up against the rotor. That's it. The wheel bearing portion of this is finished. So now we just gotta come in here, and actually we need to get that rubber brake hose off. So we'll start working on that.